Hey, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 cent Swish/gaming story for this week, where I take a look at some of the stories and give you my thoughts and my opinions. And we got 6 that came out this week that really caught my attention. Normally, I don't do that many though, but this one really caught on. And some of them are, I think, 3 of them are kind of controversies that kind of emerged this week as well. So why don't we get started with our My 2 cent story, My 2 cent video for this week, and we'll start first off with Diablo Immortal. Now, some of you are aware, some of you are aware that during BlizzardCon, Blizzard announced Diablo Immortal, which didn't exactly go over very well with a lot of people. While there were some comments that supposedly Blizzard made about lowering your expectation, the announcement of them focusing heavily on a mobile game for a Diablo game for mobile didn't exactly sit well with a lot of fans. There was the infamous "what, you guys don't have any phones," which has now become a meme. And now there are reports of not only that allegations and supposedly some evidence pointing to the fact that when the announcement trailer for Diablo Mobile came out, it got a whole lot of dislikes. And they tried to delist the video and try to put it back up, and they were caught red-handed with that, including supposedly an attempt to try to remove some of the dislikes, which of course were caught red-handed. And the backlash was so bad that supposedly their stock dropped around I think 7 points when this announcement was made. So clearly Blizzard did not handle the whole Diablo Immortal kind of a situation. And supposedly they are now responding to the controversy. In an article, and there are several articles about this whole situation, which I'll have a link in the description, but in an article from supposedly fan side, it's reported that they've issued a statement on the official Diablo 3 forum in a statement from Blizzard. It says, quote, "We want to start by saying we hear you." It starts with a bold emphasis here. "Since the moment we stepped into the office on Monday, we've been discussing everything Diablo nonstop. We are fully committed to listening and engaging, so please keep the construction feedback coming. Our primary focus right now is poring over the feedback to inform internal discussions, and we'll follow up with further thoughts as soon as we can." I still don't think that's going to fix the situation that Blizzard is in, let alone the fact that some game journalists supposedly are accusing gamers of being entitlements, which I'm very iffy of that. I'm not going to go as far as call the fake news argument, because let's be honest, that card has been played one too many times in situations that really isn't fake news to begin with. But I will say that I'm not sure this whole situation is gamers' entitlement, and I think that in this case, Blizzard does deserve a lot of the backlash that they got from this. While it's true that there are some fans that may have taken it to the extreme, and there have been cases where that has happened before, where some have even threatened developers over certain things that they don't put into the game or something like that. Hell, we've seen that happen to celebrities as well, too. But Blizzard did not really help themselves in this situation when they basically said, ranging from the comments saying, "What, you guys don't have phones," to the whole delisting the video, to trying to take down some of the dislikes, to supposedly allegations that Diablo Immortal is a reskin of another mobile game which is being developed by the folks who are working on Diablo Mobile, worked on another game. I think they're called Nexus or something like that. So honestly, I feel as though in this kind of situation, I really feel Blizzard really mishandled this situation. This is almost as bad as the infamous one EA did with Battlefield 5, with the whole comment about a woman being in World War II with a prosthetic arm, to be exact. Again, I will say that the whole SJW and feminazi comments, I think, are way out of line, and I do not buy those comments, but EA certainly did not help themselves when they said, well, if you don't like the game, don't buy it, which yeah, that in terms of pre-orders, that really had really saw a drop in that, which is one of the reasons why the game did not be released in October and was pushed back to November. So I feel as though this whole situation is just as bad as what happened with EA, to be exact. And releasing a Diablo game on a mobile device, while it may not be as bad as, while it's possible it may not be as bad as some situation is, in this day and age where we're seeing even some people's popular franchise go over into mobile, look at what EA's doing with Command & Conquer Rival, and giving EA's pushing that the whole microtransaction, the whole games as service. You can see why not everyone's happy with it. I can understand why people are not happy with this, and I don't know who at Blizzard thought this was a good idea to focus just on that announcement. I mean, and I've seen some comparison to this, and I kind of agree with that. Kind of agree with some of this comparison. Look at how Bethesda handled Skyrim Legends with a follow-up to supposedly Elder Scrolls Skyrim 6, or look at what I think Microsoft did with the announcement, I think, of Gears, a mobile Gears game with a follow-up to the next Gears game coming, though. So, I mean, at the very least, that message that they kind of give, and I kind of agree with this, though, is the fact that they made sure that, hey, we haven't abandoned you guys or anything like that. This kind of gave the impression of, we don't need you guys anymore. It's all mobile at this point and so forth. So, not a really good way to handle this, though. And that's really a shame, because honestly, I have been enjoying Diablo 3 on the Nintendo Switch, which I will try to get to review that soon. But overall, I feel Blizzard really screwed this one up big time, and I think they're going to have to really reevaluate the situation and see if they could try to earn gamers' trust. But then again, it's possible they could take EA's route of saying, you know what, we don't give a damn, we're just going to do what we want. You know what, hate us all you want to, we're just going to do that, which is one of the many reasons why I will never buy a game from EA. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2, and this one has to do with one of the folks who worked on the Final Fantasy 15 game is apparently leaving Square-Enix. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one we're going to be taking a look at, unfortunately, what has happened at Square-Enix over loss of, or at least one of their employees are leaving, basically. Now, supposedly one of the employees named, if I could get the name correctly down, Hajime Tatsaba, if I'm saying his name right, Hajimetabata, supposedly was the director of Final Fantasy 15, a game that is kind of controversial to some people. While I certainly liked the game and didn't have a huge problem with it, not to mention I did enjoy the action-oriented combat, it's because it kind of gave off a little bit of that Kingdom Hearts vibe to it. Not everybody was a big fan of the game. Some people felt the story was bland, others felt the game was incomplete when it came out, and some felt that Square Enix was milking to death Final Fantasy 15 so much because they spent all this money on this engine that they had for the game, the Luminous engine, that unfortunately that they didn't get back all their money's worth, and they were planning to keep, you know, all these DLCs coming and all that stuff. Well, it seems as though the director of Final Fantasy 15 is pretty much leaving, and it may have to, and then there is a possibility it may have to do with the loss Square Enix recently got on in terms of how much money they lost. In an article in Rock Paper Shotgun, it states that the saga of Final Fantasy 15 will be cut off abruptly, as Square Enix last night announced they've canceled 3 of its 4 upcoming DLCs. Final Fantasy director Hajime Tatsaba, again, apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly though, and if you want to read the articles, links are in the description, has left the company planning to start his own company for his own project. So that's about the end of that. The DLC story episode starring the antagonist Ardyn, Ardyn, is still coming, as more of the multiplayer Conrad and some Final Fantasy crossover goblins, but the DLC focused on Arena, Lucifer, and Nautix are in the bin. Final Fantasy 15, the global director, said in the video presentation that the company has made an important direction to change, and the decision has been made to re-examine these projects. He explains that Luminous Productions, the Square-Enix studio built in 2018 from the core of Final Fantasy 15 teams to support the game as well as make new games, will focus on the new. Square-Enix explains elsewhere that they decide to focus Luminous development effort on large-scale, high-quality AAA game titles with best leverage their strengths. He also said that the desire to deliver this new AA experience to everyone even a day sooner, so they're cutting their Final Fantasy 15 DLC plans short. I wouldn't hold out much hope for plans to expand the Final Fantasy 15 modules either. He also explained that while the other 3 episodes of the second season won't come as DLC, we still hope to deliver something that showcased what type of story we were aiming to deliver in some way, shape, or form. This also follows up in an article on Nintendo Enthusiast, which points out that Square-Enix took an extraordinary loss of $33 million from Luminous Production, which supposedly was 3,733 million yens, though. They released a statement in one of their reports, though, that said, quote, having conducted an in-depth review of business strategy for Luminous Production Company, a wholly owned subsidiary, the company has decided to focus the subsidy development effort on a large-scale, high-quality AAA game titles, which best leverage the subsidy strength. This decision has resulted in booking an extraordinary loss amount of 3,733 million yens, or what they're saying is shy of $33 million, including the disposal of the portion of the content production account related to the game title under development at the subsidy, and impairment loss on intangible assets in the company's financial results for the 6 months period ending September 30th, 2018. So, like I said, I mean, it is a little unfortunate that this guy is leaving and all that stuff, but at the same time, Square-Enix has had issues of like prematurely announcing games, running into issues of maybe some of them being too ambitious and all that stuff. Only they run into a lot of problems and all that. Most recently, the whole Final Fantasy VII remake debacle has been going through, as we learned. Oh, that almost fell. Sorry about that. As we learned about how supposedly CyberConnect 2 was working on it, and then basically everything that they were working on, they pretty much scratched that, and it looks like they're pretty much starting over to the whole episodic, to the whole idea that the person who was directing Final Fantasy VII Remake also tried to do Final Fantasy 15 which was originally Final Fantasy 13 Nexus. That game was in development for so long, and supposedly he was pulled out and someone else had to take over. So it is very unfortunate what's happening to Final Fantasy 15. Like I said, I don't hate the game, but it feels as though Square-Enix made a lot of bad decisions that put themselves into this, though. Hopefully they could bounce back and try to maybe re-examine some of their approaches. Maybe not announce games that aren't really in development to the point that they could show it, like they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. And hopefully this person will supposedly start in his new company. Wish him best of luck as well. But overall, very disappointed. Very unfortunate that this person's leaving. Very unfortunate that Final Fantasy 15 supposedly is not getting, DLCs have been canceled. But given the amount of controversy this game has gotten, though, it's probably for the best. I can understand why some would be disappointed by this because of all, of the DLCs and all that stuff, but it did feel like that they didn't make back their money when Final Fantasy 15 was released, and it was basically putting DLCs to try to hopefully make back that money as well. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see what Luminous Production, if they're working on a new game to be exact, what their next game will be. Maybe they'll start Final Fantasy 16, and hopefully they'll take the lessons, if it does turn out to be Final Fantasy 16, which I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Hopefully they'll take the lessons they learned with Final Fantasy 15 and the Final Fantasy 7 remake, and hopefully this time it's smooth sailing for Final Fantasy 16 than it was in the past. As for Final Fantasy 7 remake, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of seeing it on the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Scarlet. I could be wrong, but that's where I am leaning towards right now. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 3 of our video, and this one is, it looks as though Nintendo may be working on the next Zelda game, so, excuse me, we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video for this week, and for this one we're going to be taking a look at what it appears to be is that Nintendo could be, and more than likely, be working on the next Zelda game. With Breath of the Wild already out and pretty much becoming, so far, a very successful game for Nintendo, also a good example of a game to have at its launch though, it looks as though Nintendo is going to be eyeing what the next Zelda game or working on the next Zelda game. In an article posted on GameSpot, it points out that Nintendo has published Nintendo has published new job listing that further confirms that development has already begun production on another The Legend of Zelda game. Perhaps most interesting, the job listing suggests Dungeons, a series staple that was mostly absent from 2017 Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, would be returning in the upcoming game. Currently, Nintendo's looking for 3D CG design and level design to contribute to work on the Legend of Zelda series. Both job listings are published in Japan, but Reset Era Guru has been able to provide a rough English translation. And according to what this Reset Era person is saying, he basically points out a couple things with this. He says, quote, the first job posting is for a 3D CG designer. They specifically that it is for terrain and topographic production. Apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. For stuff such as fields and dungeons. Requirements: experience making background in Maya, M-A-Y-A, and Adobe Photoshop. Experience working on HD hardware, Japanese fluent. Other skills that will help your application: experience making background specifically for an action game, experience making concept art, experience making assets in Substance Painter and Substance Designer, interested in Zelda, leadership experience. The second post is for a level design. They are looking for someone to plan game events, the fields, dungeons, as well as enemies. Requirement: experience working as a game planner for consumer games, Japanese fluence. So the fact that Nintendo is working on the next Legend of Zelda game isn't really all that surprising at all. In fact, I mean, after, Skyward Sword came out, work began on the next one, obviously. So this isn't, which ended up being Breath of the Wild. So this isn't really new or anything. The question I really have is to exactly what direction are they going to go with this? We do know that supposedly Nintendo will bring a Zelda game to mobile devices. And so it's possible that, although I don't expect that to be the next mainline Zelda, it's possible that they could be hiring people to work on a mobile version of Zelda. Perhaps, I've heard some suggestions, perhaps maybe Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass could come to mobile devices. Other possibilities that they could be hiring people to maybe do a port of, say, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess to the Nintendo Switch, and the possibility of Skyward Swords. Although that seems more likely into, like, they may hire a port house, like they hired, I think, Tarantulas to do a port of Twilight Princess on the Wii U at the time. But it could also be a brand new Zelda game, and that I think that's most likely it is. As far as what I would like to see in the next Zelda game, well, and again, this is my opinion and my opinion alone. I don't speak for Zelda fans as a whole, but I like the idea. I like a lot of the stuff they did in Breath of the Wild. I would like for them to keep that open world approach in it and all that. But there are a couple of changes I would make. One of those would be the durability of the weapons and everything like that. I think that it would be better if the durability lasts longer, or at the very least have the ability to, break down that weapon into materials and all that stuff. I understand they borrow certain things from Western RPGs, and I think they should continue that in a certain degree. I think they should bring back certain elements from past Zelda games. Like, I like the idea of fighting, these mini bosses in the open world part in Breath of the Wild. But I think it would have been better if they had, after you defeat them, they drop either a piece of heart or a piece of a stamina meter and all that stuff. Because in Breath of the Wild, of course, you have to go to these shrines to get tokens and collect a certain amount of tokens, and you can use them to get a piece of heart or a certain piece that it refills your stamina meter. So, I mean, it was all right, but I still think they should bring that back as well. Incorporate maybe the classic dungeons in a certain way. Maybe maybe having that you could do them in any order you want to do them, rather than have it in a specific order, to be exact. So I personally, I would like for them to continue the formula in Breath of the Wild, but make some minor adjustments as well. But overall, I'm glad they're working on the next Zelda game. It will be interesting to see where it will come, whether they're doing one for mobile or not. But most likely I'm leaning towards the next one will be for the Nintendo Switch. Oh, and one last suggestion I think they should consider. Again, I'm not saying they have to do this in any way, but it is certainly an idea they could definitely consider. Maybe the next Zelda could have maybe set in sort of a steampunk setting as well. I mean, and they could do it their own way, do it their own Nintendo style way, but again, that would be kind of interesting if they were to take that kind of approach, to be exact. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 4 of our video, and apparently the developers who worked on the Switch version, if I have it right here, of Dark Souls Remaster, have some interesting stuff that they have to say about the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be talking about the development studio, I believe it's called Virtuos, Virtuos. Again, apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. Now, for the most part, most people will know them as basically being a port house, very similar to what Panic Button is, and most Switch owners will know who Panic Button is, mostly because of their surprisingly good port of Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus and Doom. But basically, Virtuos has done several different ports. Supposedly, I remember hearing that they did the port of Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age, to the Batman Arkham Collection, which contained Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. To most Switch owners will recognize them as doing a port of Dark Souls Remaster for the Nintendo Switch, and surprisingly, and I just learned this, they also did a port of Starlink, Battle for Atlantis, for the Nintendo Switch as well, and they have also done the Switch port of last year's LA Noire, a very fun, interesting crime open world type of a game, though, even though that game didn't really gain as much attention or at the same level it should have gotten back in the PS3 and 360 era. Well, it seems as though the development team may have more projects, most specifically Switch projects, in the works than many people realize. They did an interview with Nintendo Life, and the article is in the link in the description if you want to check it out. But there's an interesting part that they mention about possibly more support for the Nintendo Switch. In an article posted on Nintendo Everything, they took out a snippet of that interview, and they said, quote, they said something interesting. They said, quote, For obvious reasons, we cannot say what exactly we're working on, but we will definitely have some exciting high-profile Switch games coming out very soon. By porting Dark Souls, we have proven we could take on any Switch project, so we are confident we will get more projects in the future. As you might have seen in the last few weeks, we've also worked on Ubisoft's Starlink Battle for Atlantis, which has received critical acclaim. That's kind of debatable depending on who you're asking and which people who are reviewing the game, to be exact. Although I don't hate the game to be at all, anything like that. So the fact that they're probably working on more high-profile Switch titles is also encouraging. Exactly what those titles will be remain to be seen. But it is possible we could see, say, like, since they're working with Bandai Namco, we could see them, say, like, port over, say, Dark Souls 2, and if technically possible, if they could pull this off, and I would love to see this happen if they could, Dark Souls 3 to be exact. Since they worked with Square-Enix before, it's possible those guys could be the ones working on the Switch port of maybe Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age, which we know it's coming, along with possibility of the port of Final Fantasy X and X2, Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 9. Why Final Fantasy 8 they're not bringing over is beyond me. I don't understand why that game's getting all the hate. And considering how they worked with, say, with Rockstar with LA Noire, it's certainly not out of the realm of the possibility that supposedly they could say, and this is just a wild guess, maybe they could say port over, say, Grand Theft Auto 5 or the first Red Dead Redemption, to be exact. I mean, there is supposedly a story going around that Rockstar supposedly are happy with the games they've released on the Switch so far and have more exciting games to come from. Whether that's true or not, we'll have to wait that remains to be seen, but it is certainly not out of the realm of the possibility that a game like the first Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto 5 could come to the Nintendo Switch. They could handle that port. It's possible they could handle that port as well. So it is certainly encouraging that they are working on perhaps bringing more games over to the Nintendo Switch. Which games will be remains to be seen, but hopefully we'll know soon. Perhaps it's possible that perhaps it's possible that maybe when Nintendo does their next Direct, whether it's the rumored possibly between like November 6th and 12th, whether that's true or not, who knows. It's possible they could have a Direct maybe in January and they show off and they announce, or they say we're working on this game as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But overall, great that they're working on more Switch titles. Hopefully we'll hear more about them soon. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 5 of our video, and this one has to do with somewhat of a controversy Smash Bros. Ultimate has gotten into, or not somewhat of a controversy though. This one has to do with them removing a certain character doing a certain gesture or a certain thing. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 5 of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with somewhat of a controversy in a certain way regarding the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, I'm sure most people are looking forward to it, especially after Nintendo did that, like, God knows how many directs. I think they did a direct last week, though, showing off all the cast and characters. And, of course, we now recently discovered that there's going to be more likely paid DLC. But the one controversy that seemed to have caught some people's attention was the removal of a certain feature Mr. Game & Watch did. Supposedly it has to do with something where one of his attack moves he dressed up as a Native American or Indian to be exact. And Nintendo recently removed this, even though this was used in an old Game & Watch Game & Watch game back in the 1980s. In an article on GameSpot, it writes that, quote, Nintendo said it plans to edit an animation in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that features an offensive description of Native Americans. The company says that the decade-old reference does not reflect its current value. The animation comes from Mr. Game & Watch, whose attacks are based on the LCD handheld game from Nintendo. Reset Era noticed the moves, which comes from the 1982 cowboy game Fire Attack. That game has you defend a wooden fort from Native American wielding torches. The move was shown last week during the final Nintendo Direct presentation for Smash Bros. Ultimate. In a statement, Nintendo has indicated that it has plans to remove the animation that it appears in the Direct was a simple oversight. Nintendo has been planning to distribute an update for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that removes the feather from the silhouette of Mr. Game & Watch, a Nintendo spokesman said. The original game, which the description of the character is based, was released more than 3 decades ago and does not represent our company's value today. We sincerely apologize that this change was not noticed in our marketing material and are continuing our work to make Super Smash Bros. Ultimate an experience that is both welcome and fun for everyone. This wouldn't be the first time Nintendo edit Fire Attack to comport with the times. When it released Game & Watch Gallery 4 for the Game Boy, it removed the feather from Mr. Game & Watch characters who will no longer appear here to be a Native American stereotype. That same treatment is likely here. And of course, based on some of the comments in the comic sections I've seen so far, there have been cases of liberal-tards to SJWs to feminazis to PC and all that BS. First of all, I do want to say for the record though, I'm not buying the SJW and feminazi card, or even the PC card as well. At this point, the PC card has been played to the point, just like the race card. It's being used in situations that isn't, and I can't help but feel that the PC card has lately been used as an excuse for some people to spew out their bigotry and hatred and then use, oh, that's political correctness. I'm not buying that argument one single bit, and I'm not buying the SJW of feminazi card. When you hear comments like that, it basically gives the impression of not only has the gaming community become toxic with these kind of comments, you're also reinforcing the unfortunate stereotype of being supposedly a man-child who lives in his parents' basement, who has no social skills, no life, or no job whatsoever. Having got that out of the way, the decision on Nintendo to do this, I'm kind of mixed on this one. While I understand they don't want to create something that's offensive to some people, I can't help but feel that I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that removing it. I'm not really 100% behind the idea of removing the Native American reference in the game. Not to come off as being offensive to Native Americans or anything like that, though. But I mean, I look at the football team, the Washington Redskins, or the baseball team, the Cleveland Indians, though. Yes, I won't deny to a certain degree, especially the Cleveland Indians, it does look offensive, but so far that has not changed, or they haven't taken it down or anything like that. That, I believe, that's up to the league and the city to decide whether they want to change that or not. So I'm just not 100% sure about Nintendo's decision. I understand it is their IP. They can choose whether to alter or change the character if you want to. I'm just not 100% on board on this. I'm not losing complete sleep over this, but it's not something that I'm just not really sure about this decision on Nintendo's part, especially as I mentioned, the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland Indians as well as an example, as that although what it looks like is offensive, though, so far that has still stood up. It's still there even today as we speak. So overall, putting aside some people throwing the SJW, feminazi, and the whole political correctness card around, which I think is unwarranted and unnecessary, though, I'm very mixed on Nintendo's decision to do this, though. Yes, it is their IP. I'm just not 100% behind them on this decision, though. It does, to a certain degree, does come off as a knee-jerk reaction or a controversy that has yet to happen yet, anything like that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 6. And this one has to do with another controversy, this one involving Red Dead Redemption 2, but for a different reason. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 6th and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with a controversy that kind of emerged with Red Dead Redemption 2. Specifically, it has to do with what a YouTuber put up that sort of got a lot of people's attention. Now, Rockstar, when it comes to a lot of their games, though, are known for some of their controversy, and there are some cases where I think some of the criticism or controversy goes a little bit overboard, and some of it I could see justifiable that Rockstar deserves. For example, I think some of the criticism Rockstar has gotten ranging from the whole issues with mods to the whole issue with YouTube to some of the way that how they supposedly defended, crunch time and all that stuff, which raises a question about how employees are treated and all, especially in the wake of Telltale's closing. But there are times when I will stand with Rockstar, and I think some of the criticism is utterly ridiculous, such as the fact that I think there was an attempt to try to get Grand Theft Auto 5 banned in Australia, which I think was unnecessary to happen, and I think was utterly ridiculous to be exact. And then, of course, there's the controversy that started to merge with Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I've played the game so far. I'm still a little bit early into it. I'm still trying to get more into the game, and I'm enjoying it right now, especially with the first-person view to be exact. And as you know, Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty much an open-world game where you could pretty much do whatever you could do, and depending on your actions, can basically could get you in trouble or may not get you in trouble. So like if you punch a civilian, your honor will go down, and if you lower your honor too far, you may find yourself in a situation where bounty hunters will hunt you down. Well, apparently one person did a video regarding basically punching a woman, specifically pushing for women's right to vote and women's rights. This was basically back in 1899 when we saw the push for women's suffrage and all that stuff. And it has certainly gotten some comments, and it certainly has gotten some attentions because of what YouTube did. In an article in Push Square, and there are several articles, links in the description, basically the article states, though, like so many Rockstar games, Red Dead Redemption 2 trades heavily on its freedom. As you expect, you can go anywhere in the world and do pretty much anything you want, from hunting animals to hog-tying civilians and robbing trains. Of course, not everyone is going to use that freedom in the most positive manner, and YouTube videos of one player feeding a suffragate to a pig has prompted some controversy. The YouTuber named Shiroko, Shirrako, who has an impressive 487k subscriber, had his account temporarily disabled earlier when YouTube caught wind of a video in which he murdered one of the suffragettes, Suffragettes, that you encounter in the New Orleans-inspired towns of St. Denis in various ways. In the clip, he puts annoying feminists on a train and dumps her in a swamp with alligators, among others. YouTube originally removed the video and the channel on the ground that they breached its violent policy. The clip has since restored with an age restriction. It's perhaps worth pointing out that the murdered suffragette, if I'm saying the name correctly, Red Dead Redemption 2, actually lowers your honor rating, while attacking members of the KKK improves it. So there's definitely a message Rockstar wants to get across. In another article from Motherboard, it points out when that video came up, some of the comments that have come up that shows just how toxic things can really get, and how the gaming community sometimes can be very toxic. According to the article, it points out the comments on these videos, as you might expect, are horrible. Some users think it's hilarious. Others say that it's what every feminist deserves, while others complain about how Alimi, Alimony, Law's favorite women that echoes the other men's rights talking points. Some have written comments such as, I killed that lady too. Others wrote, every time I went to the tailor's right there, I had to listen to her yapping, got fed up, so I took her to lunch, except the only thing served was buckshots. Another person wrote, you could take this small portion of a game, stretch it to a full AAA game length, charge me $60 for it, and I would pre-order it with a season pass. So this one is sort of like the Smash Brothers. This one is, I'm kind of mixed on this. I will say a lot of those comments I read are vile and disgusting, and it just shows example of how people have really taken the SJW and feminazi card way too far, right, and all that stuff. And while I certainly don't agree with his title or his videos or anything like that, of him making this video, I don't believe his channel should have been suspended by YouTube, and I think YouTube did the right thing to put it back up. I mean, I'm aware of what Red Dead Redemption 2 is. I'm aware that you could really pretty much do anything in the game, as I mentioned earlier. It's the same thing with Grand Theft Auto 5 as well. So it's not surprising you could do that in the game, though. And in his defense, though, if he were to actually go outside the real world and actually punch a feminist or do something like that, I could see the grounds on why YouTube would suspend his channel right away. And I don't think that, but in this case, I don't think it deserves to be suspended, though. I could understand putting up an age restriction on it, or say not the video will not be monetized at all. I mean, I could understand that, but removing his channel based off of something you could do in actually doing a video game, I'm just not 100% sure about it. But I will agree that it does actually show just how toxic the gaming community has become, or how fandom itself has become toxic, especially as we've seen a lot of people have thrown the SJW and feminazi card around as a weapon. Hell, we saw that with what happened with Ghostbusters Answer the Call, regardless of, again, I'm not defending what Sony did, especially when they just attacked anybody who criticized the movie, but we've seen how some people went after the actresses as well, and how toxic that has been. We saw what happened with Star Wars The Last Jedi, how some fans went after one of the actresses, and how toxic that has been. And it really highlights just how sad and toxic that this has gotten, though. And I think it just shows just how some people are just throwing that card around, the SJW feminazi card, way too much, and has gone way out of line in there. Okay, again, I'm not saying this person's channel should be banned or anything like that. He's doing based on something you could actually do in a video game. I think it's personally poor taste in my opinion, but I'm not going to say, but I'm going to stop short of even considering this channel being banned and all. So I do think YouTube did the right thing reinstating his channel and putting up an age restriction, though. So I can understand the video not being monetized and all that stuff, but I don't think his channel should be banned, since he's doing something that you can do in a video game, compared to, like, if he were to go out and do this in real life and all that stuff, then I can understand YouTube's ground to remove the channel, to be exact. So overall, it is a controversial thing. I think some of the comments are very toxic, and I certainly don't agree with the video or his taste, but I certainly would stop short in saying that his channel should be outright banned. But I'm glad that YouTube restored it, though. Okay, this concludes this My Two Set video for this week. And again, these are my opinions. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the whole Diablo Immortal debacle? Do you think Blizzard deserved the backlash for what they did, though? Or do you think fans and gamers are blowing it way out of proportion, to be exact? What are your thoughts about this person leaving, who directed Final Fantasy 15 leaving, though? And the fact that they're canceling 3 of the 4 DLCs that are happening, and the fact that they lost money with Luminous Productions, the one that helped develop Final Fantasy 15. Do you think it was the right thing for him to leave? Do you think it was the right thing to cancel 3 of the 4 DLCs? Or do you think they should not have canceled it, though? Do you think they really screwed up with Final Fantasy 15, to be exact? What are your thoughts about Nintendo working on the next Zelda game? Are you excited for that? Are you not excited? Are there things you would like to see them put into the next Zelda game? Do you want them to take the open world approach like they did with Breath of the Wild, which I like? Or do you think they should go back to the more traditional approach? Or a combination of both, to be exact? What are your thoughts about Virtuos, Virtuos, working on possibly more Switch ports more Switch ports to be exact? Are you excited for that? Are there any games you think they could port over to the Nintendo Switch? What are your thoughts about the controversy or somewhat controversy with Smash Bros. Ultimate in terms of removing the feather or the Native American image from Mr. Game & Watch? Do you think Nintendo is in the right to do that? Or do you think they're in the wrong? Do you think people are blowing it way out of proportion, or do you think they're right to criticize Nintendo's decision on this? And what are your thoughts about with the Red Dead Redemption 2 debacle, in which one YouTuber showed a video of him playing the game, which showed him going up punching a woman who's in favor of women's right to vote? Do you think it's funny? Do you think it's not funny at all? Do you think YouTube overreacted, or do you think YouTube did the right thing in pulling his channel? Do you think they did the right thing putting his channel back on, or do you think his channel should have been terminated? Do you think that some of the comments have gotten maybe a little bit toxic and all that stuff? Do you think some people are taking it too far? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I do. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to. And feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, wish you all a good day then. Bye!